How would you like an inside look at The Sopranos and eat like one too? This is Robert Manni, host of Guys TV, and this week my special guest is Sopranos star Robert Funaro. And it all starts right here, right now on Guys TV. You can also catch me on KCAA Radio here in Southern California, Guys Radio, my worldwide podcast, and we're on UK Health Radio all weekend long. Guys TV, Guys Radio, thanks for your support. Okay, Guys Radio, it is the interview portion of our show, and I'm delighted to welcome back a special guest to Guys Radio, iconic actor Robert Funaro, who is well known and is well known for his Emmy Award performance as Eugene Pontecorvo in The Sopranos, members only. Everybody remembers that episode. He's also written a wonderful cookbook. It's called Homemade. Let me hold it up now for our YouTube viewers. Homemade by Robert Funaro, and it's got 8 Soprano stories and 8 recipes. I read the book. It's terrific. Let me tell you a little bit more about Robert. He is a New York guy, born in Coney Island, Brooklyn, began his professional acting career 2000. And it started out really in perpetuity since then in The Sopranos when he played Eugene Pontecorvo. He appeared on The Sopranos for 3 seasons, culminating in his breakout performance, Members Only, which once again won the Emmy for Best Dramatic Episode. He's been on Law and Order, Ray Donovan, the movie The Sinner with Jessica Biel, Scorcese's Vinyl, that terrific TV series. It only lasted 1 season, but it was very good. Ray Donovan, American Gangster, The Irishman, Charlie Mantle, and also a new one, Critical Acclaim. So he's written a book that has 8 stories about The Sopranos and 8 recipes because he's a master cook also. So I'm delighted to welcome back to Guys Radio, Robert Funaro. Welcome back, Robert.
Robert, beautiful introduction. Thank you so much for that. It's really an honor to be back on your show because you talk about relevant topics and you ask relevant questions and interesting questions that another actor or maybe even a cook could pick up a couple of tips on what to do. And that's important, sharing those things.
Well,
thank you.
Thank you. Let's start right at the beginning. Excuse me. Something's ringing here. Okay, let's start at the beginning. So
shut my phone off too.
So I think our audience would like to learn about, acting, learn about your path into what you're doing now and how you got into The Sopranos, etc. So start out with, you were in an Italian family like myself. I was in New Jersey. You were in Coney Island. You had family members who, working class people, I'm sure. They cooked, they ate Italian food. There was a neighborhood, the whole thing I experienced also in New Jersey. How did you get the acting bug? And how did you get into it?
First, let me just say that the kitchen is like a church for, I think, for families that were surviving. Everything happened in the kitchen. Decisions were made. Great food was consumed. We ate in my grandmother's unfinished basement on 20th Avenue and 69th Street. I had the opportunity when I was somewhat a struggling actor to live there. My uncle inherited the house, so to say, although it was my father and everyone owned it, but he sort of inherited it. So it gave me an opportunity to return, but it was finished when I returned. But speaking about my uncle, you asked me how I got the bug to act. I think it really was from him, from his genetics. I'm the second son. He was the youngest of all my father's brothers and sisters. But he was a priest in Brooklyn, and he started with humble beginnings in Howard Beach. And he raised money for the parish, Lady of Grace, I think, maybe not, another parish, I can't recall the name. And he raised money by doing plays. And that gradually built up and got better and better and better until he really produced a lot of great plays for Brooklyn Catholic Charities. He was working with the Bishop McGarvo, I think that's his name. Excuse me.
Bless you.
Thank you. Thank you, Father. Thank you. God bless. He's blessing us now. So that started the whole thing because we would go to his shows and they were really good professionals. Some of the composers would go to his shows. It was a Christ the King church in Queens, the big church, and we got the bug and we would go and I really loved it. And then he would take us to see some plays, Broadway plays, and I never forget. He took us to two plays, Beatlemania, which was great.
I remember that, sure.
And Al Sapienza, by the way, played Ringo, but I'm not sure he was in
Wow.
that production. And then he took me to a play that really influenced me that I really truly loved. It was called, and you know it, and I know it, many people know, A Chorus Line,
Sure.
Michael Bennett's Chorus Line. And that particular show really kind of gave me the hook to really love to pursue acting. And I really got it from him. Even as a director, the little things that I have directed, I feel I've got his genetic code in that sense, and I've been very fortunate to carry it on. And but that's how it really began for me through the my Monsignor Funaro.
So then what did you do about that? I mean, there's one thing about, experiencing it in the neighborhood and having the dream and then actually getting out there because it is competitive and it is a business it's a business. You have to learn how to act the craft and also you have to learn the business and how to make a living for yourself as an actor, which is not easy. So
No,
how
it's
did you
not.
kind of follow that?
I went through a lot of struggles. It wasn't very easy for me because I even though I really wanted to act, I decided that I wanted to drive around a Jaguar and be like Saturday Night Fever, have money and women and the whole thing. So I took a course. I entered Pace College in downtown New York, University Place, as an accountant. I decided I'd work on Wall Street, be an accountant, but I was always bad at numbers, Rob, really bad. And most actors probably are very bad, and I'm sure artists are very bad at numbers. So, but I do remember one thing as a child that really was when I think about it from time to time, and then I'll get into how I became an actor. The neighborhood kids, we went at the Deluxe Theater down on 18th and Bath Avenue. We went to this theater called the Deluxe, and we went to see Pinocchio, a matinee of Pinocchio. Me and my friends, we were like maybe 7 years old, and we went to see Pinocchio. And I watched it kind of Walt Disney's Pinocchio, and I was like
Mhm.
mesmerized by it. But when the film finished, there was no one. My friends had left me flat. And and I went back and they were laughing at me. Yeah, hey, you watched it. But I knew that I had that something was different about me, that I stayed to watch the whole particular show and everything. Now, fast forward to Pace. I failed that accounting. I wrote a poem for my final in the first semester called "Don't Quit When Things Seem Worse." I failed that, so that I was but I went home kind of dejected. And my mother really knew. She had, like all great mothers, they knew how to unpack your
Mhm.
true wants and your desires. And I said, the accounting's not working out. She said, well, did I have drama? You like acting? I said, well, let me look into it. And then they had a program, a very good dramatic program,
At Pace.
not the same one that Bradley Cooper went to, but he did graduate Pace.
Really?
Pace.
I
Yes,
went to
Bradley Cooper.
Pace also
Yeah,
after work for
did
my
you?
MBA. Yeah,
Yeah. Bradley Cooper, he graduated their drama program. It
really.
kind of got better and better, their drama program.
Mhm.
But had great, and I fell in, and I went and I excelled. They were all mad at me because I was coming in on second semester. Everyone hated me because I was pretty natural.
Mhm.
And but the problem with the college thing is I've always been impatient until I got on Sopranos. Then I learned patience.
Yeah.
uh, but I really wanted to be the lead in all the things. And I remember being in Romeo and Juliet and stuff. But then it really, I moved on from there, and I met a woman, and I had a relationship. Didn't have any babies, but I was serious. I left my home, kind of like the prodigal son, Rob.
Mhm.
And after that relationship was over, it really wasn't right. I went back to my family's home. My father took me back, and there was no any kind of resentment or anything. And my father provided a place where I
Mhm.
can start my dream again. And that's when it started again. I went to HB Studio. I decided I'm really going to do this. Herbert Berghoff, Earl Hyman from The Cosby Show, all of these great,
James
um,
Gandolfini went there too,
yeah,
right?
yes. And I started with HB, and then I did a play with Paul Sorvino. I understudied. It wasn't. I think it wasn't The Music Man. It was another one that was. The Music Man is based on this play.
It's all right. It's all right.
My memory always
You
slips
were
my
working.
memory.
You
This
were
one
working,
play.
and you worked
Anyway,
in theater.
Sorvino wanted to do have a group theater, an American group theater. So we did it at Fairleigh Dickinson College in New Jersey.
Yep.
So they gave us I landed a job as an understudy. We were getting paid, and they gave us like 3 performances. So Paul was a great guy, and we didn't play. Gary Sandy was in the production from WKRP because he wanted to start. Paul had a lot of clout then, and he wanted to start this, and it failed, like many group theaters failed because they're not really funded by the government here. It's more of a capitalistic society, subscription theater. But anyway, after I did that play, Rob, I said, damn, I don't know what I'm doing here. I feel like even though I studied at HB, I just don't know the process. So a good friend of mine from the drama bookstore, his name was David Salmon, God rest his soul, he passed away. David had opened up his apartment. He had some rooms, so I can stay there at his apartment. And we became fast friends. And he suggested to me and said, listen, you should study with Bobby Lewis from the group theater. And I said, well, I can't afford it. He's really expensive. Don't worry, I'm going to pay for it. I'll pay for 2 or 3 classes for you. And don't worry, but you'll take it for a year and a half. And you'll pay me back one day. And that's what happened. Wow. After that whole stint, I auditioned for A Streetcar Named Desire, the European tour, the Scandinavian tour, Sweden, Finland, and Norway. And James Gandolfini auditioned also as Mitch, whom he played later on with Alec Baldwin. I never played Mitch. I never played Stanley. I never was as fortunate to play that. And we toured Europe, and it was our first professional job. I knew what I was doing. It really went well. We had a great time doing it. And that's how it all happened to me. Then fast forward 7 years later, I was working at Caroline's on Broadway.
Sure.
James found out through a friend that I was working there, and he came down to ask me during the beginning of third season, to audition for Sopranos. But that's basically how I.
So you were working the door, and I believe another parallel to his career, he was working the door, I think, at Private Eyes, right?
Yes, Private Eyes. I think he Rudy's too. I think he worked the door. He was there at Private Eyes. Yeah.
So you auditioned, and the interesting story is my special guest once again is Robert Funaro from The Sopranos and so much more, and we're going to talk about his cooking book also. But you actually auditioned for the part of Ralphie that I think Steve Buscemi got. Is that it? No. Which is that?
Joe Pantaleone.
Joe Pantaleone. I'm sorry. Right. Okay.
And I landed the role. I talk about it in my book. How it happened for me, James, everything. And I think James thought about Ralphie, and he said, well, Bobby was really good as Stanley, and Stanley is as antagonistic and anti, enemy of that. So it was somewhat like that role, and that's why he thought of me for the role. But as I was shooting, David just said, these are really 2 nice guys here. And Bobby's such a nice guy. I don't think I have that match that I wanted, that Joe Pesci kind of a mismatch.
Edge, right?
And Joe Pantaleone, from what I understand, they had asked him to do it. I don't know if Joe refused something, or maybe he asked for a certain amount of money and HBO didn't want to give it to him. So, but he was one of the first ones. Even Ray Liotta was considered for Ralph Cifaretto. I don't know I don't know whether or not Ray wanted to audition for it. Maybe not. But anyway, listen, it's what happened, and we grouped, and of course, David said, he asked me one time, "What are you going to do after this?" Well, I said, "I hope I'm still working on the show," and it was true. They gave me the role of Eugene Pontecorvo. When I asked, "What was it about?" "Don't worry about it. We're going to make it up as we go along. We're going to find out about you." And they really got who I was. And not to say that I would do such an act, but I think that that sacrificial thing I have inside me, that I did what I did for my family. So anyway, that's how it
Okay.
happened for me. And I stayed on the show, and James was one of the greatest men. He sent the elevator down, like Jack Lemmon would say, for
Mhm.
other people, because he knew how hard it was, Robert. You
Yeah.
talked about how the difficulties of being an actor. It wasn't a straight line for me. You get an agent and you do a play, and James knew how difficult it was. And at that time it was pretty difficult to land the agents and get in the door. And he
So,
helped his friends. And I try to do that as much as I can. I always say in my prayers, if I'm able, I ask God to help me help those
mhm,
actors that really need that little
mhm.
push.
That's
He
beautiful.
did for me.
So as an actor, then, so you get a role on The Sopranos, and then they change the role. They kind of pull the rug out on that, and they're going to develop something else. So two parts of that. As an actor and a business person, because you have to get paid, how do they position that for people out there who want to be
Well,
actors in terms of like, how are you going to get paid?
well,
How do you
if
know
that
your
was
length, your,
right.
the arc, your character arc? Is it like, is it every day you're not sure what's going to happen?
No, I mean, well, that everything's contractual, so they had to
Mhm.
keep to the contract that I wrote. I
Okay.
mean, that I had signed, so I was still getting paid the same money
Okay.
for playing Ralph. But
Mhm.
in terms of the role itself, I mean, then there's the there's always your pride, your ego that I didn't do that role. It was a bigger role, and it was something that was there was it didn't work out. So what are you going to do? You have to swallow your pride in a way, and swallow, and everyone on the set knows, well, he was Ralph, and now he's Eugene.
Mhm.
So it took a lot of my father's mentorship, my father telling me and suggesting to me that keep going back, learn as much as you can,
Yep.
encouraging me to keep going. My mother, keep going. Don't let that. It's not. Sometimes setbacks are our greatest
Mhm.
attribute. You know what I mean,
Well
Rob? I mean,
stated.
Paul the
Yep.
Apostle talks about that in Corinthians about the
Mhm.
thorn in his side. That weakness makes him turn to God. Same for anything in life. I think the setbacks, and even with working out, the resistance, that heart brings you forward. So that was one of the greatest things that happened to me. That happened, and Eugene really turned out to be a great character. Don't ask me where members only came from. Only I can
Mhm.
only think of that it was the man upstairs that
Now,
what
what
gave that episode to me. You know what I mean?
So as your character was being developed, at a certain
Yeah,
point, they came to you with this very special episode, which kind of made a lot of things happen for you. But
yeah,
it was an episode where your character was going to be written out of the show in a very
yeah.
dramatic way, and you end up winning an Emmy for that. Yet you're out of the show. How did
Right.
you kind of process that as an actor? What did you do? What did you think about that? And
Well, no one ever wants to leave a great show. You don't really appreciate a show like Sopranos, a series like that, The Family, and when you're on other sets, you really see the difference between what they have and what you had once before. There's a lot of regret, but we all have to move on. So if I was going to move on, that was the episode I'd like to move on, because before that, it was the Snapple bottle that people would say, "Hey, you smashed that guy over the head," and I said, "Geez, all this Shakespeare training and all this, and I'm going to be
you're
known
breaking
as the guy
heads.
that
You're a
that
wise
smashed
guy
that guy
breaking
over the head
heads.
with a
Yeah.
Snapple bottle." But listen, if it was if it is, it is. What am I going to do? I don't have any control. And took the man upstairs, took control, and
Mm.
and I was blessed with members only. So I mean, it's just.
So now, Robert, okay. You're out of the show, but your career kept going. What was the first thing that happened? How did you kind of reconnect to the next opportunities for you?
Well, you just keep auditioning. I mean, I got to tell you, when Sopranos was running, the doors were a lot more open than they are
Sure.
now. And ever since COVID, a lot of actors were really not working as much as we should. And there's a lot of actors, if you look on Broadway, film actors that are doing Broadway. And
Yeah.
they say now maybe some more jobs are coming to the East Coast because of the fires. I'm really not basking in their misery there,
Mhm.
but it really was. Sopranos really opened up a lot of doors for me. Of course, members only. It was easier for my manager to get me seen. For instance, Sinner.
Right.
I think because of members only, I was even considered for Sinner with Jessica Biel. The character's name was Ron Tanner, when I landed the role, and I guess I had that sincerity that they were looking for, although they did change me to Tannetti, from Tanner to Tannetti after I had landed the role. But people typecast, they still
Right. Yeah.
typecast.
I wanted to ask you
this
about
way.
that, Robert.
Yeah.
You're Italian. I'm Italian also. How do you feel? And it seems like Italians are the one group of people where anybody can make fun of them, and they don't seem to take umbrage to that much. We always get kind of like picked on, but we don't care. How has that? Do you agree with that? Number one, and number two, when you're an actor, do you have a concern? And there's so many great Italian actors about always being put in these like mob type roles or things that are so basic, like Italian. You even though we love pasta, but it's all about the typical Italian stuff. What's your take on that? What's the take from the other members of the cast in terms of Italian actors being typecast?
I think that I think if you really look at closely at Sopranos, you'll see that, well, besides Edie Falco, who is extremely talented, who's had two TV shows since the shows ended. But if you look at, in terms of film, let's just say straight films, really can't name TV. Yes, there's White Lotus with Michael, and Broadway. He had accomplished Broadway with the Ibsen play, but there is it's true that a lot of these productions, they find out that, oh, these from Sopranos, because of that familiarity.
It can work with you and for you or against you, right?
Yeah. They don't want to hire because you're well known. They want more of a amorphous kind of person that steps up in that way. So it is biased. They are biased, but listen,
it is what it is, I guess, right?
Let me just say it's a struggle. And if you look at all the actors from Sopranos, not everyone really is working on a regular basis, except for a few. Steve Schirripa works. He's done the Blue Bloods,
right?
And a few others. But it's not so easy. If you look at Dom Cinese, he did 10 years, and then he landed Uncle June, from Godfather to a terrific, talented actor.
Yeah.
So it's tough, Rob.
Okay. Critical acclaim. That's your latest. Tell us a little bit about that, and then we'll move to the book.
Okay. Well, Critical Acclaim was shot in Utica, New York, in 2022. I was given the audition by a friend of mine, Paul Borghese, and I landed it. And it's about a film director who gets a bad review, nothing unusual, and he kind of goes off the deep end. He leaves his wife. He gets a girlfriend. She's a prostitute. He tries to be serious with her. He drinks. He basically can't deal with defeat and that review, and he just becomes suicidal, so to say. But I don't want to give the film away. But then it's a spiritual based film. He finds God, and he manages to get off. Kick the wagon, so to say. And kick what do you call that? Kick the bucket or kick the wagon?
Get off the wagon, right?
Get off the wagon.
Right.
And to straighten out his life with the help of God, and to come to terms with himself. And the thing about that particular, I think in acting, what you're experiencing once you start getting some work is that your life starts to meld and marry into the work itself. And that's really what happened with Critical Acclaim. I had gone into a deep depression. I got COVID 2 weeks prior to it. It just put me in this dark place. And I don't know, I kind of use that for the character. And I think he comes through. I think the emotion, the feeling, not that it's all about emotion, but let's just say, I don't think I can ever repeat that performance. Now, actors, we don't have control of how the film goes.
Right.
Sometimes it's great. And sometimes but it's a film that I think is worth watching just for the performances also,
It's streaming now? Our audience
it's
can
streaming,
check it out?
right. It's streaming on Amazon. It's $2.99 on Amazon Prime.
Okay, we'll check it out.
Critical Acclaim movie. Thank you, Rob.
Awesome.
Yes,
okay, let's move to the book because it's a very unique book, and because It's 8 stories from The Sopranos, and it's also 8 homemade recipes. And the name of the book, of course, Homemade, with my special guest, Robert Funaro.
Thank you.
When you were growing up, I guess there was a lot of Italian food in your household. I know mine, my mother was half Italian, half German. My dad was all Italian, and he wanted things a certain way. So we ate Italian food, not every night, but probably 2 or 3 times a week, and particularly obviously on Sunday. How about you? You're strictly Italian. Did you get Italian food all the time, or was it mixed with
I know
traditional
we
American
sometimes
food
mom
and
would
all
make
that?
some hot dogs or
Right,
a
right.
meatloaf.
Mhm.
Although the meatloaf had a little Italian edge to it, the little cheese in there,
Yeah, yeah.
Pecorino Romano cheese. But she cheated, so sometimes, I mean, we'd have some American food,
Okay.
chicken, mashed potatoes, and stuff like that. Fried chicken, mashed potatoes, more American food. But of course, the chicken in the oven with the onions and the olive oil and the garlic and
Cacciatore before you
that's
know it,
super
right?
because it makes this dewy. The chicken makes this dew there. It's
Mm,
like take the Italian bread.
mm. Boom. Were
But
you
we had both. We're basically Italian, but Robbie, yeah.
were you hanging in the kitchen then? Were you like, obviously you loved eating the food, but were you curious as to some of these recipes back then? And how did you learn to
Yes.
cook?
If you find me, you would find me in the kitchen. I would say I was a mama's boy, yes, and I would, watch her do things. I just such a relaxing. This is her table I'm at now. Even though I moved, I kept her table. It's something about it that's just tranquil to me, and just not so. It's stress free in a way. Cooking has
Mhm.
always been a stress free thing for me.
Okay.
You
So you
know,
got 8 recipes in here. Let's talk about how did you make the choices for these recipes? Obviously, there's so many great Italian dishes, and you didn't do some of the more obvious, a manicotti or ravioli or gnocchi aren't here. However, you got eggplant parmesan, you've got blue crab recipe, and a whole bunch of others. So talk to us about them. You got chicken parm, Sister Linda's Italian rice balls, Grandma Frenero's oven roasted chicken, peas and macaroni. Talk to us about how you made the selection for these recipes.
well, yeah, I mean, they were just going to be nothing fancy like
Hmm.
beef bourguignon or the short ribs. It was just stuff that we would have during the week, and I think that's kind of wholesome food. I always thought, and I also thought, well, geez, maybe I make the cookbook so we can feed families of 5 or more, because we know about inflation, and if you can make one meal that stretches out to 2 or sometimes maybe 3,
Yep.
yeah, that's what we used to
Mhm.
do growing up because of survival listen, it comes from starvation, right? Some
Okay.
great meals have been made because of starvation because there was nothing in the
Exactly.
house. What do we have in the refrigerator? Oh, we got peas. All right, we got pasta. We got pasta. Well, we got onions. All right, we can't use the garlic, so we're going to use the onions. We got a little leftover sauce. Let's throw the sauce in there too. Well, then I got a jumbo. You
Okay.
know what I mean? Put it
Let's.
together, throw the things, and that's it. You got
Okay.
peas and
So
macaroni.
is it Robert? Is it sauce or gravy in your household?
Both, but it was called gravy more than it was called sauce. Gravy. We
Okay. And
called it
then
gravy.
what's the key to a great sauce or gravy?
The key is having of course the ingredient. Love is the primo key.
Magic,
Cook with
right?
love in your heart. I say it in the book.
Mhm.
Secondly, I think it truly is the ingredients that you use, and going by the process of what I plot out in the book by using that as an instruction guide. That's the key to it. Don't try to once you've got it mastered, then you can do like little things like how can I make the rice bowls a little bit of moisture? Maybe I'll throw a little ricotta in there to make them even more. You can try things, but you have to master those things
Mhm.
first. You know what I'm saying, Rob? So
Right.
I chose these recipes because they were my favorites growing up. And that's basically it, except there are a few, the penne vodka sauce chicken parm. Mom made it with she made it with the Sunday sauce or gravy, whatever you want to call it.
Mhm.
But I like to make it with the penne vodka sauce because people don't realize penne vodka sauce is really easy to make. It's not
Yes.
so hard. You just got to buy the Georgie vodka. You know what I mean? But it's very, and then of course Nick Fury chicken, which is the chicken that I named after my uncle who fought in the Korean War. He used to like scallions and Chinese food, so I got that recipe. It's kind of like a General Chow chicken,
Yes.
but it's
Yes.
less. It's really less greasy, and it's a lot more. I don't know. It's just better. I like it better. It's
Yeah.
crispy. It's just not so greasy. A lot of Chinese food is so greasy, but I like, don't get me wrong, I respect them. So I like the
It's
Chinese.
flavorful. It's flavorful.
Yes.
So, in terms of ingredients, you mentioned some brand names, and other instances, no. But did you have, and do you still go to like the local quote unquote the Italian store? We always used to go to a special place to get a lot of our ingredients, the olive oil that we wanted, maybe the right tomatoes in a can, etc. How about you?
Yes. Love to go to La Bella Marketplace here in Staten Island. It's a terrific Salon Maria where they have great ingredients. The San Marzano, the muti tomatoes. But I'm
Mhm.
always experimenting. My mom used Tuderoso, and I still have the Tuderoso, but I'm always experimenting. See, oh, let's see this tomato, how this crushed tomato is. Let me see how this this Pomodoro sauce is, and from the fresh tomatoes. A friend of mine just gave me some bottled tomatoes that he did last year. So, they make them with the basil, and you just could,
Hmm.
they're preserved they're sealed in the glass. So I have those, and maybe I'll make that this weekend, a Pomodoro sauce with those. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's all that's the basic thing. I still used it. I still have, I just ran out of my mother's, like, she passed away in 21, but I kept her
Sorry.
oregano, I kept her fennels. My sister said, "You're crazy. You still using the fennels from mine?" Yeah, I'm still using them because you only use a little handful of fennel. They're
Mhm.
still good. It's right. It's still good. It's
Well,
still
you
good, Rob. It's still good.
maybe you want to try your hand at a sauce. Your pal Vinny Pastor, who's been on the show, he sent me a couple of jars of his sauce. It actually was very, very good.
Well, that's, A&S basically. I mean, no disparagement to Vincent, but a lot of the sauces, except for Rayo's, because that was
And
approved
that's
by
everywhere
Frank
now.
Pellegrino. That was
Yep.
approved by, I did a play with Frank and I worked with him on Sopranos. He approved that sauce and he told me the secret to it. The Vinny Pastor sauce, which is discontinued, was a product of the A&S
Okay.
pork stores. And they put out a decent sauce to this day. I think they still put that same sauce out. But it's tricky with sauces, Robert. A lot of people have sauces now, so I
Right.
think that
I hear you.
even pre-frozen pizzas, it's a tricky thing. The food industry and what people, they want something really quick. That's why they get the sauce so they don't have to cook it. Now, if you look at Rayo's, that was initially was bought by a company, I don't know the company, for $400 million. Frank took care of everybody, the chefs, everybody. Then Campbell's took it over. And now if you
Mhm.
look in the store, there's Rayo's everything. So it's
Everywhere.
like,
Yeah, the
it's out of
ketchup now.
control. Rayo's
Ketchup.
pizza, Rayo's
Yeah.
Gabadeal, Rayo this, Rayo that. And that's, I
Amazing.
know that's one, I think one of the reasons why I know certain people, they don't want to expand because they don't want that recipe to be kind of exploited or watered down.
Mhm.
And if you taste the penne vodka sauce, no problem with this Campbell's, but that penne vodka sauce ain't what it was originally when
Well,
Frankie had
what
it.
happens is, having worked in corporations, when the big corporations sometimes buy a product, they'll find there's a lot of efficiency. There's like, how can we make more and expand the margin? And a lot of
Yes,
times that starts impacting ingredients, and before you know it, you have a different product. But it
yes,
happens. It happens all the time.
yeah.
So when you're looking back, do you say, you know what, I should have put this recipe in, or I've got another 8 recipes for another book? What's your feeling about
Well,
your whole
maybe we'll do
recipe
it.
world?
Maybe, yeah. I mean, it could be a book too. I'm not sure. I mean, I'm not really. It was the book, like writing the book. Who Andrew Jedlicka, my manager, I
Mhm.
have two co-writers, and James
Okay.
McCusker, who more or
Yes.
less got self-publishing, is a master at self-publishing. He helped write in the beginning, Robert. I would give him like a chapter, and he rewrote it. He looked at it, and I said, "Hey, this is not me. It has to be me. I like my acting. It has to be me inhabiting the person that I'm playing." So I told him, "Look, let's get this straight, James. I love you, and I appreciate your help and the corrections of the grammar, but it really truly should be my voice." And James was great. He said, "No problem, Bobby." And I meticulously looked at that when I reread it, that it's every word that I said
It comes
was,
through as you,
yeah,
you know, the recipes as well as
yeah.
and the chapters for everybody out there. The book is a very good book. Without the recipes, it's a very interesting story that you've written, and the 8 chapters are very distinctively different and very informative and well
Thank
written.
you.
And the recipes are classics, so you can't go
Thank you,
wrong
Robert.
with that. So what's
Thank you.
next for you, Robert? What's coming down the pike for you?
Well, I've been auditioning for some plays. I got a short film that I'll be shooting, but it's a teaser to I do a lot of independent stuff. So a play called Leathernecks, and hopefully it gets produced. A lot of things in the credenza, so to say. I've written some scripts, co-written some scripts. 3 of them, and hoping to get one of them produced. One is about James Tilton, the first Army Surgeon General of the United States Army during the Revolutionary Wars.
Mhm.
He was a Delawarean. He was from Delaware, and he was a surgeon. Plus, he fought in the wars. Interesting story about him. One called Ghost Mafia, which is a great one about it's an occult one. It's a lot of fun, a lot of humor, where we would bring the old dead Sopranos back, but they be like the freshmen, like Marlon Brando came back as
Yep.
Don Corleone, but he really wasn't Don Corleone.
Right.
About a loser who kind of gets picked on, and he does this spell, and I don't want to give it away, but anyway, it's a fun story. And then one called Handsome Jimmy. So it's these projects you got to keep busy, Rob.
Yep.
It's just become the work is lessened, and everyone is pivoting. So I mean, I got the book signing in Massapequa, June 14th, between 1 and 3 at the Barnes and Noble.
Okay.
I'm doing that, a lot of book signings, and of course promoting Omerta cigars, which we
Yep.
and Omerta Cafe, get Omerta on Instagram.
And coffee too, they make, right?
The coffee, yeah. So everyone is pivoting. If you look at it, people are even a lot of actors are doing a lot of promos because it's not a lot of work. Morgan Freeman is selling insurance, that's great acting, but it's not so easy. So I think, I think that it is becoming more of a somewhat of an independent thing that you try to create your own thing. Like very much, I think it was prophetic what Sylvester Stallone did. Although he did have help, he was helped by William Morris. His agent was William Morris, and Henry Winkler helped him. But I think a lot of people are doing that. Not to say, excuse me, that you wish that the stage and film it was a tight wire, so the people, the non-amateurs, would kind of, and I think that shows through that people when they do things, it shows through. Even though I'm making a movie, so many people making movies, but they don't understand the principles of drama.
Yep.
Which is the Greek drama, which is
and working the stage, really theater work too, right?
Something tragic or something happens, and then the character's thrust into some sort of thing that makes him uncomfortable. He has to overcome.
Exactly.
See, they don't understand.
What does the main character want, and why can't he get it, right?
Yeah, Oedipus is a great example. There's a plague on Thebes. He wants to save Thebes from the plague. He finds these things out. He plucks out his eyes. Oh, Madonna.
Well, listen, Robert Funaro, keep doing what you're doing. You are an artist. You're not just an actor. You are an artist. It comes through in your story. It comes through just meeting you personally. You're a great guy and a spiritual guy too, which is awesome. And the book is called Homemade, 8 Sopranos stories, 8 homemade recipes. Keep doing what you're doing. God bless you. And please come back whenever you have something you want to talk about and promote. We're here for you.
Thank you, Robert, so much. It's been such a great pleasure and honor to be on the show with you. Thank you so much.
Always. Thank you, Robert. If you enjoy the guests and content I bring you each and every week to Guys Guys TV and Guys Guys Radio, please support us by subscribing to our channels and platforms. Thank you.